Hello and welcome back to another Wednesday workshop from the Mapton School District. Today we're going to be looking at the 4 M's. And when we talk about planning and planning with the end in mind or beginning with the end, it's the idea that we can start with objectives and where we want to land and what we want students to learn by the end of our unit or lesson or mini unit. And one of the best ways to ensure that students are learning is to have really solid objectives. And sometimes we can use objectives and just have something up there for the sake of, we're told that we have to have objectives or learning targets or goals. And so we just decide on something and that's closely aligned to what we're doing, and it's more of an afterthought. But if we can measure our success using the 4 M's, then we know that every lesson that we teach, every unit that we plan out is going to be rigorous, it's going to require students to learn, and it's going to be important. So the 4 M's are broken down into manageable, measurable, made first, and most important. So manageable. Can the objective be taught in a single lesson? Is there an activity that will fit within the time frame, including time for independent practice? Do you have a means of assessing it in that time window? So by the time that the lesson is ended, we want to have the activity complete, some time for independent practice or some guided practice, and we need to have some form of assessment. Now sometimes we can say, well, this goal that I have, this target, this objective, can't be done in an hour or about 50 minutes when we get down to it. That deep understanding takes students several days or even weeks to reach. But it's still important that you understand today. What is the objective for today? How am I going to measure it? And how am I going to give them time to work with it? What that's going to allow you to do is know that your students are steadily progressing and moving towards that larger objective and that larger goal. What you don't want to have happen is you get to that larger goal assessment at the end of several days or several weeks, and all of a sudden you're surprised by the fact that students don't know what to do or they can't show you mastery. And it's important that you let your students know the larger goal, right? Whenever you're starting a new unit, lay out everything. Lay out the big goals that feel really big and almost impossible, but then begin to show them the smaller goals and objectives that will help them to reach that larger, almost seemingly unattainable goal. The next part is that you want to have your objective measurable. And it's important that you have this measuring because, one, you want to know how well did the lesson go, right? We're moving away from this was a really good lesson because students liked it or they thought it was great. But we're measuring now on student learning, and success comes with being able to show that they have met these objectives. That doesn't necessarily mean a test or a quiz. You can still measure for success using some formative techniques. For instance, check for understanding throughout. You can use exit tickets at the end of the lesson. Just make sure that your exit tickets are aligned with your objective to ensure that you are measuring your students' ability to meet the objective and not necessarily to meet the activity or to see how far they got in an activity. And so, again, it comes down to not necessarily having to have a test or a really big task for students to complete. You just want to be able to say, okay, at the end of the lesson, Here's what I want students to be able to do, and here's how I'm going to know that they know how to do that. All right, next is made first, and that means that we are starting with the objective, starting with that goal, and then thinking of an activity. Sometimes we start with our favorite activity or an activity that we think is going to be really cool, and then we sort of force objectives or goals onto it and try to make it fit. But even really great lessons sometimes need to be modified or adapted to meet the objective that you're trying to achieve. It doesn't mean that you can't do those fun activities. It just might mean you need to add or take away something so that you can reach that target goal. And then finally, it needs to be most important. An effective objective focuses on what's most important at this point in your student's path to higher education. So we would hope that that aligns to the school and district curriculum, the state and national standards. But if you can't see that clearly, or even if it is and you're thinking, I don't see why this is important, try to, in your own way, understand and explain to yourself why this is an important objective and goal to teach for that day. That's going to help you to explain your reasoning to your students and ensure that they see the importance of what you're doing. All right, well, that was quick and easy. I would really recommend that you take a look at some of your recent lessons or lessons coming up and your goals and objectives and see if they meet the 4 M's. If you have any questions, please reach out. We'd love to talk more about this. Have a great week.